Their words stabbed her like knives. And the worst part, a tiny voice inside her whispered, "Maybe they're right." That night, she broke down. She sat on the floor, knees to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She felt small, invisible, defeated. But then she remembered her mother's words. Be afraid of giving up. So she wiped her tears, stood up, and made a decision. She would enter the competition, no matter how scared she was, no matter how many people doubted her. The next morning, she went to the teacher in charge and submitted her name. The teacher looked surprised. Are you sure?" Lydia swallowed her fear and nodded. "Yes, ma'am, I'm sure." From that day on, her life changed. She practiced every day after school. She watched videos of great speakers. She wrote her speech again and again, tearing pages, rewriting, improving. She practiced in front of the mirror, the same cracked mirror, where she had once whispered her dreams. But the journey wasn't smooth. Her voice would shake. Her hands would tremble. Sometimes she forgot her lines. Sometimes she felt like quitting. But every time she fell, she stood up again, because she had a reason bigger than fear. She wanted to prove to herself that she was capable of greatness. One evening, as she practiced in the empty school corridor, the principal happened to walk by. He watched her silently. She didn't notice him until she finished. He stepped forward and said, "You have a spark, Lydia. Don't hide it." That one sentence filled her with confidence she had never felt before. Finally, the day of the competition arrived. Thousands of students from different schools had come. The stage was huge, the hall packed, the lights bright and intimidating. Lydia's heart raced as she stood backstage, hands shaking, knees weak, voice stuck in her throat. She closed her eyes and whispered, "This is my chance. This is my moment. I won't run." When her name was announced, she walked onto the stage with trembling steps. The crowd looked massive. She felt like running back, but she forced her feet to stay still. The hall was silent, and for a moment, Lydia could hear nothing but her own heartbeat. Her palms were sweaty, her throat felt dry, and her legs wanted to collapse, but she didn't step back. She closed her eyes for 1 second and remembered who she was. The girl who practiced in front of a cracked mirror. The girl who walked alone after school every day. The girl who refused to give up, no matter how heavy life became. She opened her eyes and began speaking. "My name is Lydia," she said softly, her voice trembling. "And for most of my life, I believed I wasn't good enough." The sentence echoed through the hall. People leaned forward. Her voice was shaky, but her honesty was powerful. She continued, "If I grew up in a place where dreams seemed too big for people like me, I was told to stay quiet, stay small, stay invisible. But the truth is, I don't want to live a small life. I don't want to die with my dreams still inside me." The tremble in her voice slowly faded. Strength began to replace fear. Every word carved deeper into the hearts of the audience. "I know what it feels like to be laughed at. I know what it feels like to be judged because you don't have money or fancy clothes or the right connections. I know what it feels like when people tell you you're not enough. But today, I'm standing here to say something different." The room went silent again, hanging on her every breath. "You are enough. Even if no one believes in you. Even if the world tells you you can't. Even if your life feels like a storm, your story isn't over. You still have a chance to rewrite it." Her voice rose with passion, with truth, with fire. The same fire she had been building for years. "For a long time, I thought my struggles were holding me back. But now, I understand. They were building me. Every night, I studied alone. Every day, I walked to school in worn-out shoes. Every insult, every failure, every tear, they didn't break me. They prepared me." People began to nod. Some whispered. Some wiped their eyes. The judges exchanged glances. They had seen confidence, but rarely had they seen raw authenticity like this. Lydia took a breath and stepped forward, no longer scared of the crowd. She wasn't speaking to impress them. She was speaking to change herself. "I stand here today, not because I'm the best speaker, not because I come from a special family, and not because life has been easy. I stand here because I refused to stay silent. I refused to shrink. I refused to let my pain win." The audience erupted in applause, but she gently raised her hand, asking for silence. She wasn't done yet. "I want every person in this room to remember something. Even the smallest light can brighten the darkest room. And even the quietest person can change the world if they refuse to stop." The applause this time was louder, longer, filled with respect. When Lydia stepped off stage, her heart felt lighter than ever before. She didn't know if she would win the competition, but she had won something more important, herself. She finally believed in her own voice. Backstage, a teacher from another school approached her. "That was extraordinary," she said. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" Lydia smiled shyly. "I didn't learn it," she replied. "I lived it." When the results were announced, her hands trembled again, not from fear of failure, but from excitement. The host walked onto the stage, held the envelope, then said the words that made Lydia's entire world shift. When the applause had faded and the lights dimmed, Lydia returned home, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. The trophy sat on her bedside table, shining under the soft glow of the lamp. It was more than a medal. It was a reminder. She had a voice, and the world had heard it. But victory didn't mean the struggles ended. She realized that success might open doors, yes, but what mattered was what you did after through them. People expected something now. People believed in her. People waited. And she owed it to herself to prove that their belief was right. In the weeks that followed, doors began opening. Local youth organizations invited her to speak. Schools asked her to share her story. A small community radio station offered her a slot. Lydia accepted them all, even though public speaking still felt like going into a storm. But every time she stepped onto a stage or behind a microphone, she felt alive, like she had found her purpose. At first, the audiences were small. A school assembly, a handful of students at a community hall, a few listeners over the radio. But Lydia spoke with authenticity, not polished perfection, but truth. She talked about nights reading under dim light, of scraping by with broken shoes, of feeling worthless and still standing up. One afternoon, a journalist from a city newspaper called her, asking to write a story about her background and how she won the competition against all odds. Lydia was hesitant. She had always been private, but she remembered her mother's words about fighting big battles. She agreed. The article was published. The next morning, she found a handful of letters on her table from young girls who said they felt inspired, from a boy who wrote that he, too, had felt worthless until he read about the girl who refused to break, from a woman who said she was going back to school because of Lydia's words. Some wrote from neighboring towns, some from faraway villages. Lydia realized what she had become, a beacon for people who felt unseen, not because she had wealth or fame, but because she was honest about her struggle. One letter stood out. It came from a teenage girl in a distant town. She wrote. Lydia held the letter close, tears in her eyes. She knew then that her journey was no longer about her. It was about all those who felt forgotten, ignored, or too small. Determined, Lydia decided to start a small community program. Once a month, she visited nearby towns, talked to underprivileged children, shared her story, and encouraged them to dream. She donated her old school supplies. She offered free tutoring for those who couldn't afford school materials. She spoke to parents, teachers, anybody who would listen. Slowly, impact started building. Children began visiting local libraries. Some enrolled back in school after years of dropping out. Others started working towards scholarships. Their once dim dreams began flickering again, just because someone believed in them, just because someone had been where they were. But the path wasn't smooth. There were days when Lydia felt overwhelmed. The travel, the emotional weight of countless stories, the pressure to inspire. Sometimes she doubted. Was she really helping? Did her words matter? She wondered if she had taken too much onto herself. Then, late one night, she received a message from the girl who had written that letter. She had just passed her high school exams with top grades. Her mother cried when she saw the results. She said she was going to college. She thanked Lydia for reminding her that she was worth fighting for. In that moment, Lydia realized something crucial. Empowerment isn't about giving solutions. It's about rekindling belief. Belief that says, I am worthy, I am capable, I can try, I can dream. Lydia's own life had changed. But more importantly, she had given others a chance to change theirs. Years passed. Lydia got admitted into a university. The scholarship she earned from winning that competition helped pay her fees. She studied hard. She worked several part-time jobs to support herself. She faced challenges, sometimes loneliness, sometimes exhaustion, sometimes fear. But deep inside, she carried something stronger than fear: purpose. In university libraries, she would see new faces, young people who looked uncertain, overwhelmed, different from everyone else. She would walk up to them, smile, and whisper, "You're going to be okay. Was where you are." And often, they smiled back the same smile she once had when she opened that first rejection letter. That smile full of hope.